Time flies. This is really a more than a trek and more than a routine. It's a whole event and a series of moments of astonishment that build to a conclusion, obviously. Now, of course, on previous publications I've had a number of routines, and I decided with this particular piece to just offer this one routine, but there are in fact probably 5 or 6 separate effects within the one routine. It has a bit of everything. It has mentalism, it has sleight of hand magic, and some old mind reading techniques, some card concepts. Some of the sleight of hand, I hope it doesn't put off the beginners out there. It's not easy, but with practice, with some practice, you should be okay. And hopefully I'll be able to teach you in some detail how to go about some of the sleight of hand. I start the routine by talking obviously about time. What is time? Well, it's a concept rather than a thing. We know time has something to do with the movement of the planet. So if the Earth revolves once, it's 24 hours. Once around the Sun is a year. So it's the movement of heavenly bodies which create this concept of time. If I'm talking to some bright people, I might even talk about relativity. Do you know that time stops at the speed of light? This is an actual law of physics. So time is even linked with light and speed. So whatever your introduction, once you start the routine, you're going to ask a spectator to think of a time. Ideally, you need 2 people. You could do this with 1, but it's nice with 2 or more. Because one person is going to wind a watch, and the other person is going to both think of a time and think of a playing card. So you start with asking someone to think of a time from 1 o'clock to 12 o'clock. Obviously, no quarter pasts or 20 pasts. It's got to be on the hour. Now, in mentalism, it's often or usually good to try and personalise things. So usually I'd say something like, this hour could be close to, say, the time you got married or the time you had one of your children. It could be significant to you. Now, before I go on with talking about the routine, the clock force is a very old concept in card magic. In fact, I remember when I was a kid starting out, I think I started when I was about 10 or 11, I remember learning the clock trick, it was called, and it was this idea that 12 cards were made into a clock face. Someone thought of a card and you were able to find it. Quite a simple trick based on the clock, what's called the clock force. Now, this uses the same concept of force, but in a different way. And basically it is this. If I take 12 cards, if I take 12 out the deck, and somebody hides any number of cards, say 4, as long as I know this top card on the remainder of the deck, I'm able to work out how many cards have been hidden. And in the context of this routine, the time that they're thinking of. So let me explain that. I'll just show you that. We'll use the Jack of Clubs because if I remember right, that was the card in the write-up. So the Jack of Clubs is on the top. Then I put 12 cards on top of that. So the 12 cards are taken. 4 are taken away, or any number. These are placed back on top, which is on top of the jack. Now if I take the top 12 cards off, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and turn everything over, the jack will be at the same position from the bottom, or in this case from the top of the face-up cards, the same position as the number of cards that were hidden. So 1, 2, 3, and the fourth card is the jack. The fourth card is the jack of clubs. So that's the concept. I know the time. The way the trick is built, they will think of the jack of clubs, they have no choice. And then after that, you as the magician and mentalist need to move that jack of clubs to a position of interest. So that's the concept, the clock force. Old, but this is the clock force in a new context. Okay, what about the idea of knowing that top card once the 12 cards are taken? The simplest thing to do would be to remember the 13th card down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Jack of clubs. We'll keep using this as the example because that's the one we used on the write-up. So before the whole routine, you can have those ready to go. As long as you know the 13th card, that's the force card. It helps if you could do a little shuffle while remaining, keeping those 13 cards exactly on top. Now magicians learn false shuffles and do false shuffles and false cuts and stuff like that. And I'm sure, and I hope, there are some magicians watching this and they know what to do. For the beginners, you could do something this simple. Take the cards face up in this grip for a shuffle. Peel them down like this and keep going to about halfway or 2/3 and then put everything back, and that leaves everything on top the same. That would be a simple false shuffle. Okay. I myself, and a lot of people who have been into magic a bit, I prefer to give the cards at the beginning to the spectator to shuffle. It just looks a lot fairer, obviously, although you can do it the simple way. And after they have shuffled, I actually get them to take any 12 cards. And the suspicious one will take them from all over the deck. But most people after shuffling will just take them from the top, it doesn't matter. So 12 cards are taken. 1, 2, 3, 12. Now at this stage I do not know that top card. Okay? I'm going to give you 3 ways of knowing what that top card is. The first 2 ways, well, they're all quite simple. I use the third one. The first one would be just to take the cards back and ask a very simple question. Did you shuffle the cards well? And of course, in saying that and turning the cards over, I'm getting a look at the top card. That works. Another subtle way would be to give the instruction which you're going to do about, you are going to take any number of cards from 1 to 12 and hide them. So say you think of one card, say you think of 1 o'clock, you would take one card and hide it in your pocket or whatever. Now, in showing them what to do, I've looked at the top card. That'll fly by them as well. That's very cool actually, because it's very bold. What I tend to do is take the cards and just hold them as in normal dealing grip, and then I just lift up the back top card and have a little glimpse at the corner. I'm lifting the corner up with my left corner up with my right thumb. And basically I hold the cards here, my hand comes over, and I simply lift the left corner, the bottom left corner of the top card. Okay, so it comes over, my thumb That's up the corner. I'll show this separately in a close-up shot, but that's it. That's the peak. And it happens very quickly. You know, they've shuffled the cards. They've taken the 12 out. These come back. And it's that quick. That's how fast the peak is. So if that's the way you're going to do the trick, which is preferable, you won't know the card until that moment. And that becomes both the force card and the card they're thinking of. Okay, back to the routine. While your back is turned, they go through the process of thinking of a time. We'll use 4 o'clock to tally in with the write-up. They hide the cards in a pocket or whatever, and then you ask them to put those cards neatly back on top of the deck and to square up. And then you come back. Now, theoretically, you could go straight into counting 12 cards and going into the routine. I wouldn't really recommend that because you want to give the impression of mixing the cards first, and you want to give the impression that you're taking any 12 cards out. You could use that shuffle I did before, and then back to the top, keeping the top intact. Magicians with a few years experience will know various shuffles they can do to create the impression of a mixed deck. In terms of cuts, there are many false cuts. I mean, that is so simple, it's outrageous. Magicians know what I did, but for those of you at the beginning, I took the bottom stock, and then the top stock, and it goes, so it looks like I cut the cards, but the reality is I'm just putting them back together exactly as this. That's a simple one for the beginners. This is one I always use, and I've been doing mentalism and magic for 40 years, 35, 40 years. Watch this, I just take my this forefinger, punch the cards over, that's the top stock. When these come over the bottom, I keep a break with my little finger here, and I'm going to cut to that break, but in 2 movements. So I take half those cards at the top, cut to the break, and then cut down. So that's a neat false cut. So you cut. In fact, you can do more than, you could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as long as the last one goes to the break. And that leaves the top stock intact. Now you're set to go, because you say to the spectator, I want you to think of one card. I'm going to take 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay? When you take them, make sure you don't change the order. Now when everything goes over, your card that you looked at will be at the position which corresponds to the same amount of cards they are hiding, and therefore it corresponds to the time they are thinking. Again, for clarity, 4th card down is the Jack of Clubs. My 4th card is the 4th card down. So it all happens like this. I take the cards, I've dealt them out, and I just quickly look, and then I close them, and then I put them down. Now I know what time they're thinking of, and of course I know that eventually they will choose the Jack of Clubs. But what I'm looking for there is the time, because now we go into the watch part. Even at the beginning of the trick, you could have taken the watch off actually and said, well, watches and clocks represent time. I know time is a concept. It used to be sundials, and but watches sort of concretely represent what time is. I'll tell you what, we'll use this watch. Now remember, you've just found out secretly what time they're thinking of. So they go down and you take the watch and you pull it out. Now with these watches, everybody, there are 2 clicks out. If you take it completely out of the winder, the time will change by twisting. Everyone knows that, right? However, if you push it in 1 notch and twist, it'll still twist, but the hands don't move. The date changes, but the hands don't move. Now this is one of the beautiful parts of this trick. anyone who's managed to get hold of my second book on how to be a mentalist, one of my routines, one of the routines in there, it's not really my routine, but it's a great routine using this concept. I think I call it time to make a change in how to be a mentalist too. Same concept. And what you're doing is, very simply, you're showing the spectator, look, can you see the hands change? And they agree. And then you move away slightly so they can't see. And now I'm setting the time for 1 minute or 2 minutes before 4. If you do 2 minutes, it gives you plenty of time to sort of build up the routine. And then I push it in 1 notch without them realizing, turn it face down, give it to the second spectator and say, will you keep on winding, please? And they do that, and they can wind the watch. And the illusion is that they're changing the time, but the hands aren't moving. It's stuck just before 4 o'clock. When they finish winding and you say, just stop when you want, ask them to push the pin in, and they actually feel it go in, again reinforcing the illusion that they've been winding the watch. And then you simply take the watch, put it down. As you'll see as this routine goes on, it's useful to have the watch, if you're right-handed, slightly to your right. If you're left-handed, it'll be over this side, but most people are right-handed, so I'll just explain it that way. So, that's how to get the spectator to wind to the time. Now remember, they don't know. They think there's a random time there. Okay? And this person here has just simply, is now ready to think of a card, which is what you do next. So, recap. Somebody is thinking of a time and has hidden cards. Another spectator has wound the watch blindly to what they think is a random time. You now take the 12 cards, turn them over, remember the Jack is 4th, and you're going to ask the spectator to think of one card that corresponds with their time. Now you know it's 4 and you know it's the Jack, but they don't know that you know. And what your job is now, your job is to count through those cards, and in that action, you're going to get their card to the top of this little pile here. And this is where the sleight of hand comes in. Now, beginners, as I said before, don't be intimidated. If you practice anything, you will get good at it. Now, even if you've never done magic before, just by looking at this tape over with cards in hand, you might never, you might not want to become a great magician. You might just want to do a few tricks or a bit of mentalism. But if you practice hard enough, you might become brilliant at this one move. And it's called a biddle steal. And the idea is, as I count, and there'll be a close-up on this separately, I'm asking them to think of a card, and I'm going 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. On the 4, because I know this is the correct card, I keep a break with my little finger. Well, nowadays I've had some problems with this finger. I sort of keep a break with this finger now, but that's a long story. I've had surgery on this finger. So on that break, what happens is this, so that's 4, as this one comes over, I'll change that. As this one, so you've got 4, as this one comes over, you're going to take the Jack underneath, take the Jack and take it away, but it's hidden by taking the 6 down with the thumb. So you sort of grab the Jack and slide the 6. And if it's done correctly, it just looks like the 6 is going on top of the Jack, but really the Jack is going to the back here. So watch. 5. That's number 5. So the Jack's at the back. Yeah? And then 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Now 12 o'clock is 2 cards. You keep them together as one, because this one's your card, your 4th card. And all you do is simply place that all to the bottom. So when you turn them over, your Jack is on the top, in preparation for for the final move. So that's the Biddle Steal. Again, there'll be a close-up on this. It's the fourth card down, as we know, and you're saying, think of a card, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and 12 o'clock. Now, hopefully, you didn't see me steal the card, did you? Or did you? Watch. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, slow down for you, 4 o'clock, break, take the jack under, 5 o'clock, and then you count through 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So in normal time, it cannot be seen. It cannot be seen. And remember, they don't know that you know the time. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, done, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and 12 o'clock. Think of a card. Okay? So now your card is on top. Are you thinking of a card, madam? Yes. Are you thinking of a time? Yes. So, now comes the part where you take the card and put it under the watch. Any magicians who've been doing this stuff for a while know about the classic card under the drink. I still do it. It gets an incredible reaction as a magician to ask someone to look at a card, think of a card, spread them out, and then suddenly the card is under the glass. It's a great trick. I do it, 60% of the time I'm out performing close-up magic and mentalism. I'll do card under the glass if I get the chance. It's just great if they're drinking a drink. And the way I present that trick is, it's like at the end, when everything's done, I say, "Oh, are you enjoying your drinks tonight?" And they go, "Oh yes." I say, "What are you drinking tonight?" And it's when they look, they see. Well, it's the same concept. I've just used that concept for the watch. And don't be scared by this, because there's built-in misdirection. For beginners, misdirection is wherever I look, the audience look. Okay? If I'm directing my attention this way, the audience will usually direct their attention in that way too. Yeah, that's misdirection and perception. People can only see so much in one time. I don't want to go into a whole treatise on misdirection, but it's probably the most important concept in magic, and a very important concept in mentalism as well. This is how you get the card under the watch. You've counted them. Their card is on top. Now again, there will be a close-up for this. You are going to palm the card. For beginners, it just means one card, the top card, is going to end up in your hand. And if I turn my hand round this way, you can't see it, can you? That's called palming a card. And there are many, many ways to do it. The simple way is to use your left thumb to slide the card as your right hand comes over and takes the card like that. It really isn't difficult. Again, there will be a close-up, and I think I'll probably teach you this one as well, where you slide the card on. It's not difficult, but the point is, you're talking to the spectator as you palm the card. To get the card under the watch, if I just went like that and like that, obviously people would see it. It's all about timing and misdirection. The card is palmed, and I reach over with the cards to the spectator and say, take the cards and count them one at a time, face up. Before I finish that statement, I've well finished, because it goes like this. Palm. Okay. I want you to take the cards and I want you to count them face up. It happens in one quick movement. Because my direction's going this way, I'm able just to take the card, drop it behind the watch or to the side of the watch, and then place the watch on top of it like that. But because I'm looking this way, I would like you, please, I need you to take the cards and I want you to count them on the table. They never see that. That's the misdirection. and telling them what to do. Now other people are looking that way as well. Now, home and dry now, folks. There will be a close-up on this for you as well. You say, I want you to count the cards on the table for each time. So 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and out loud, I'd like you to do that. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. That is the first, believe it or not, that's a trick, because one card has disappeared. And they'll react to that. They'll go, hey, 11 o'clock. That's when you butt in and say, there seems to be an out missing. That's when you do a strange sort of statement. You say, at 4 o'clock, sometimes strange things happen. And sometimes time flies. So, there's the second effect, because they don't know that you know the time. So just by saying at 4 o'clock, time flies and strange things happen. That's a whoa, how did he know that? But then you say, can you see your card? And then they realise their card is not there. So you can see how this is building. Wow. Cards have gone missing. You guess the time and now the card is gone. This is great. You're so home and dry. And then you say, yeah, time does fly at 4 o'clock. And then I just relax and gaze down at the watch. Magicians, as I say, who know card under glass, know the reaction that this gets, because when people realise, whoa, how did that card get there? Now that is a great magical moment. The watch just takes it to the next level, because they're already reacting. Now the natural reaction is for them to reach for that. Let them go for it. Because although they can't see their card, and there's an extra card, there's a card magically appeared under the watch, their brains are saying, it can't be my card. They grab for the card, it's the Jack of Clubs, they go, they react strongly. And then suddenly you've left the best bit till the end. And really milk this, because it's so strong. Actually say to the second spectator, oh, remember you wound the watch? And they'll say yes. And, pretend to sort of, you being a bit disingenuous, but do you remember what time you wound it to? And he's obviously going to say, well, no, because I didn't know what time I wound it to. It was face down. Oh, right. But you did have I'm really milking this, but you did wind it fairly. Oh, yeah, yes. Okay, well, check what time you wound it to. And when they turn the watch over and they see 4 o'clock, well, wow. That's it. Amazing. So, okay, that's time flies. It's obviously a multiple phase routine. I hope you enjoy practicing, but more importantly, I hope you enjoy performing, because it really has got a bit of everything. And if you're willing to put the time in, especially people new to the art of magic and mentalism, the two things I taught there, the Biddle steel and the palm, and the palm out to under watch glass and the traditional trick. I know they're not easy, and when you're performing in front of a live audience, things it can be a bit nerve-wracking if you haven't been into this for that long. So my only advice for the people who are rather new to this is to really practice those moves. Of course, if you're new to it and you can't practice, you feel you can't do that, well, perhaps you could just use the clock force and do that to read the mind and guess the card that they're thinking of, and that's a strong trick for the beginner. But for people who are into magic, you should appreciate what this is in terms of a build-up. So I would encourage the beginner to try and to practice those moves. And if I'm talking to any professionals out there or semi-professionals, I hope you like the routine, and I'm very pleased that you purchased it, and I hope you get some mileage. So thanks, and God bless.